Hello again. I mentioned in a previous video that I am planning to be very active during June to coincide with the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. If 10 years ago is anything to go by, the last time we were allowed to use the Quebec regional secondary identifier, then putting a Q into my call sign should increase activity considerably, particularly with overseas stations. So over the last couple of months I came up with a list of 15 things that I'm planning to try during June. And if you were thinking to yourself, well, what can I do that would be a bit different, hopefully this video will provide some extra inspiration to you. I will still undoubtedly be on 40 meters SSB and 2 meters FM, but these are extra things, extra ideas that I might try during June. The only significance of the order is this is the order that I thought of them, and in the second half of the video there will be clips of me trying some of these. Remember also, this video is very UK centric. Some of the things here might not be possible or legal in countries abroad. So the first one is C4FM beaconing on 29.250. If you own a Yaesu FT991 or 991A, you can do this. There is a Facebook group that is given over mainly to this topic, and I'll put a link to that in the video description. And whilst it does seem to be a mainly US based Facebook group, there are people elsewhere, including in the UK, who are members and who beacon using C4FM. Idea number 2 is AM, amplitude modulation, or ancient modulation or advanced modulation, depending on how you feel about it, on any band. Now the most popular AM frequencies are probably 3615 and 5317. 80 meters is a problem for me because I have S9 of noise these days that is on the band most of the time, coming from one of the neighbours' houses, except annoyingly during the middle of the day when I can actually hear 80 meters, but that's also the time in the 24-hour period when 80 meters is usually emptiest. 5317 might be okay. Going higher in frequency, I'm not sure about AM frequencies on 20 meters, but on 15 meters I'm under the impression that above 21.4 is okay, and there's one video in particular on YouTube that I've included a link to where 21.420 does seem to be a very popular frequency. On 10 meters, anywhere in 10 kilohertz steps between 29 and 29.1 is fine for AM. And last but not least, on 2 meters, and I'd love to get an AM contact on 2 meters. I don't think it's in the band plan officially, but I gather that 144.550 has been chosen as the centre of activity for AM. Number 3 is CW on 2 meters and 70 centimeters. I've been practicing quite a lot since the beginning of the year. I'm finding it very hard. My CW is not great, and I certainly don't go very fast. So contacts on 2 meters in particular at quite a slow speed may be possible. Just be aware that even though the official centre of activity for SSB, for CW calling is 144.050, I have noticed that when conditions are good on the band, some stations, and French stations in particular, will call CQ in CW just above 144.300, which is the SSB centre of activity. The rationale being, I suppose, that if anybody is monitoring that frequency for random SSB contacts, then if the person calling uses CW just above that, then it's likely the person monitoring will hear them, whereas if they're much further down the band, that probably won't happen. Number 4, FM satellite contacts will shamefully, despite owning an elk log periodic Yagi for several an elk log periodic for several years now. I've only ever used it for terrestrial contacts. I've had a go at operating through some of the FM easy sats, but have been unsuccessful. I think that has probably got more to do with me doing it at weekends during the day when the satellites are very busy, rather than me actually doing anything wrong. But if I can get a good pass in a quieter moment during June, then hopefully I will have my first FM satellite contact. Number 5, new foreign languages, and I've put Italian with a question mark, mainly because Italy is usually very much in evidence on 40 metres here on the south coast of England, and it's not a language I speak. YL Raisa has a video on her YouTube channel where she has an Italian lesson, and it's well worth watching if that's something you want to try to do. Again, there's a link to it in the description. Number 6 is a QSO on 10 metres using this, the Magnum 1012 handheld. Now, I have had a contact or two using that, but it's always been with UK stations not very far away. What I want to do, perhaps from the water's edge near the sea at the bottom of my road, is to work hundreds or maybe even 1,000 kilometres via sporadic E. There is a video on YouTube of an American station doing that exact thing, and again I'll include a link. From what I remember, if you put rechargeable batteries in this, you'll be lucky to get 2 watts out of it. And also on the earlier versions, this is an earlier version, there is a certain amount of chirp in the signal, so if somebody's listening to you using SSB rather than FM, it does give your signal a very distinctive quality. Idea number 7 is digital simplex on 144.6125, which is the simplex calling frequency for digital modes in the UK. Now, you might think to yourself, even if you live in quite a built-up area, the chances of monitoring that frequency and randomly hearing somebody are slim to 0. I live in a semi-rural area. Okay, I'm not miles out in the countryside, but I only need to walk for 5-10 minutes from my front door to be standing in open fields, so I'm not in a town centre by any means. Purely randomly, by monitoring that frequency, I have heard simplex DMR contacts, and they're actually quite strong, so don't knock it till you've tried it, as the saying goes. Number 8, Meteor scatter. I have never done this before. I gather it may be slightly easier on 6 metres than 2 metres, in the sense that the trails last a bit longer. I do have an old and rather damaged 3-element 6-metre Yagi, which I might try to resurrect if I'm feeling brave. Failing that though, I might just see how I go with a dipole. But yeah, that will be a brand new one for me, Meteor scatter on any band. Idea number 9, QSOs on 60 metres, which is a very underrated band, unfortunately only available for transmission to full licensees in the UK. Again, from reading around, I get the impression that 5.3985 has become the de facto UK calling frequency, although I have heard activity on all frequencies throughout the band. And don't forget 5354 and 5363 both coincide with the 60 metre allocation in Europe, the WRC 15 allocation, and if you hear people on those frequencies, they'll only be using 15 watts ERP, or they should be, so a good opportunity to turn your power down if they're 5 and 9 plus to you. Number 10 is the SOTA activation, Summits on the Air. Chanctonbury Ring is the highest point in Sussex. It's 10 miles away from where I live by road, if that. When I was little, I walked up there with my mum and dad in the late 80s, early 90s, and for whatever reason I haven't been back there since. So I've never done a SOTA activation in the UK before, so that could be a good opportunity, either on 2 meters, or I might be tempted to take my FT817ND up there and try to do something on HF. Number 11 is the 6 meter band, but above 50.5. In the UK, 6 meters is 2 megahertz wide. I would be willing to bet that the vast majority of the 6 meter fanatics worldwide have very rarely transmitted above the the bottom 500 kilohertz of the band. But there's interesting stuff higher up. You've got FM simplex, you've got repeaters, you've got reduced bandwidth, fast scan television, tests, gateways, digital stuff. So yes, I'm sure I will be predictable and transmitting SSB somewhere between 50.1 and 50.2, but I'm also going to make an effort to use the top end of the band as well. Number 12 is 80 meters whisper at night. I can make my 40 meter dipole resonant by clipping extra wire on the end of it, and even if I've got S9 of noise on on receive, that doesn't mean I can't transmit. So it might be interesting during the shortest nights of the year in June 2022 to see how far I can get on 80 meters. In the past I have managed to transmit whisper at low power on 160 meters by shorting the inner and the outer of the coax together from the 80 meter dipole and then running some radials out to act as an earth. I wouldn't recommend doing that if you're running any kind of power, not least because the coax back to your radio then becomes part of the antenna. But for low power stuff, and whisper in particular, I have used top band in the past, so might have another go at doing that again. Number 13 is using a simplex gateway. There is a local one which uses C4FM Yaesu System Fusion. Up until last year it was on 70 centimeters. It has now switched to the 2 meter band, mainly because one of the licensing conditions for 70 centimeters was that the gateway had to be attended, and the gateway keeper applied originally because he had ideas of walking down to the local beach to go fishing and then working back through it, and obviously that idea ground to a halt pretty quickly for the reason that I've just said. But now that it's on 2 meters, it can run unattended as well, which means hopefully if I'm out and about then it will be switched on the whole time, as wasn't the case last year. And incidentally, on that note, listen out for gateways on the air. There's more information about that and a link in the notes below, running from the 11th to the 19th of June this year from memory. Idea 14 is QRPP, very low power. I've got the FT817ND. 500 milliwatts is the lowest power setting it will go, and okay, CW might make that a bit easier, but I would like to get some half-watt contacts using SSB, especially seeing as conditions on 40 meters appear to be improving in the last couple of weeks or so. And last but not least, if I can't quite manage a SOTA, I might try a HEMA Humps Excluding Marilyn's Award, and Truly Hill, which is about 7 or 8 miles away from here, does qualify, so I might take myself up there for a bit of VHF and HF. Okay, I hope there's been some interesting information in this half of the video so far. Apologies for it being a long one, but I do waffle, as most people know. In the next part of the video there will be clips of me trying some of the things that I've mentioned in this list as a kind of practice or preparation. And guess who didn't spot, because he didn't move the camera and wasn't looking at the screen on the back, that in the first bit of that video the bottom of the list wasn't visible. So I know I've read some of them out loud, but in case you want to read my terrible scrawly handwriting, this is what the bottom of the list looks like.